Welcome to the Executive Real Estate Investing Show. This podcast is for you, the busy business owner or executive looking to create generational wealth. Here, we're going to show you how to do that through real estate investing, from multifamily to industrial and everything in between. You will become a real estate investing expert. And now, here's your host, Michael Holman.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Executive Real Estate Investing Show. I'm your host, Michael Holman. Thank you for being here with us this week. We are very excited about the episode today. We have a great guest, Josh Ferrari. He has done a lot of amazing things, and he has taken off very quickly in a short period of time. So I'm really excited to bring him on here in just a second. First things first, though. If you have not yet subscribed to the podcast, go ahead and do that right now. Whether you're listening to Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, no matter what you're listening to, go hit subscribe. If you're liking what you're listening to, or if you're on YouTube and you want to hit subscribe there, whatever it is, hit subscribe. Also, leave a rating and review. We want to get this information out to as many people as possible, and we can only do that when we share it. So please, rating, review. We want to hear from you. We want to know what you like, even if there's something you don't like, which I can't imagine being the case. But if there is, go ahead and leave that too. We want to hear from you. Also, if you haven't checked out the website yet, www.executivereishow.com. You can look at all the resources. You can look at all the YouTube videos. I know we've done some podcasts where we write all over a whiteboard and we show you exactly what we're doing. If you haven't seen those yet, you can go, once again, executivereishow.com and see all of those. And last but not least, before we get into today's episode, we are going to start with the executive tip. So the executive tip for today is you need to learn to focus on the most important thing, right? That, like, the number one priority. And honestly, you can almost throw checklists, out the window for a little bit. But if you learn to focus on the thing that's the most important in your business, whether that's real estate investing or anything else, go ahead and you need to schedule out, focus on the one thing that's the most important thing that you could be doing, and let everything else go by the wayside if you have to. But if you focus on that one thing, you'll find that everything becomes better, everything becomes easier, and you can actually get a lot more done. So we're going to get into today's episode. I'm here today with Josh. He is awesome. I've been talking to him before this. He's really fun to talk to, really exciting. He has a really cool story, actually a pretty cool journey on how he's growing a business, how he's into real estate investing, and we're going to get into all of that. Really excited to have him on. Just a little bit about Josh. He's actually raised over $7 million in private equity. He went from 0 to 239 units in 6 months, and he has over 75,000 podcast downloads in just over 12 months. All amazing things. Josh, welcome to the show.
Wow, what an intro. Well, glad to be here, man.
Yeah, absolutely. And we're glad to have you. So Josh, tell us a little bit about yourself, who you are personally and what you're doing in your business.
Well, who I am is Josh Ferrari, living down here in Southern Alabama. I don't know if you can tell by my accent. I never feel like I have an accent, but every time I have a conversation with someone, they're like, "Oh, you're definitely from the South." I'm like, I guess I got an accent. So yeah, Southern Alabama, moved down here actually from Memphis, Tennessee, a little over 4 years ago to start what I thought was going to be a long-standing career as an aircraft technician, what I currently am now full time. But then roughly about 6 months later, I found real estate from my dad. And then I got the bug, I got the intrigued passion behind, let me learn more about this. Let me learn what this is all about and all of the different ways that you can actually create wealth through real estate. Because start slowly getting into it, you learn, oh, wait, there's another way over here. Oh, wait, look, it's like shiny object syndrome. Look at all these cool things you can do. And so I just had to get to a point where I just picked one, and I dabbled in wholesaling for 6 months, didn't like it. Then we tried house hacking. That was the worst financial mistake we've ever made. Not because house hacking is a bad idea. Granted, house hacking, I think, is a great idea, but the specific deal we bought and just everything else that went along with it, it was bad for us. So we said, okay, we don't want to do this either. So what do we want to do? So we ended up roughly about 2 years, 10 months from now, or almost 3 years ago at this point, I decided that multifamily, and not just small multis, but bigger multis, is what I really wanted to get into. I remember stumbling upon syndication, went by going to reading some books and listening to podcasts and going to a couple of different local real estate meetups. There was a guest speaker that came over from Pensacola one time to talk specifically about multifamily syndication. And that was right after I had read that Joe Fairless's book, the big red one, Best Ever Apartment Syndication Advice or something.
Yep.
I was like, well, this is very intriguing, but I still feel like I don't know any of the details, any of the intricacies. This is just high level, basic bullet points of what to do. So I go to the meetup, and it was almost like another high level conversation, but I did get a couple of things out of it that I didn't previously know from reading the book. And I just remember thinking, oh my gosh, this is it. Like, I already thought it was kind of it reading the book, and I already was kind of interested, but like 100%, why did I start doing this when I first got in the industry? And so I ended up going up to the speaker afterwards, found out we both had aviation in common, ended up taking him out to lunch that next week. He kind of became somewhat of a mentor immediately after that, and he's been somewhat of a mentor ever since. So fast forward to today, we now have 2 business partners, and we've since closed over 239 units. We've got another 88 under contract. We're really trying to hit 1,000 units this year. It's looking like that'll trickle over into next year. And our goal, our 3-year vivid vision, which is actually up here on my wall right now if you're watching.
Awesome.
Is to hit $100 million assets under management by the end of 2023. And we can do that. All 3 of us can get out of our W-2s, which we all currently work right now, go full-time in the industry, and grow this business the way we truly want to grow it. And so that's a little bit about me.
That is a great story. And there's like 100 things in there that I want to talk about. But just going off to the first one, I mean, you talked about aircraft technician, and that's what you're currently doing full time. What got you into that? That's pretty. It's a fairly unique job. I feel like you don't hear about many aircraft technicians. I'm an accountant, by trade, and so everyone and their dog's an accountant. Tell us how you got into aircraft technician.
That could be the case. I feel like being in the aviation industry, I know just too many people that are in it. It's kind of a small world, just like how real estate is. You meet one person, you kind of know everyone because they know the next person who knows the next person, kind of thing. That's kind of how I feel like it is in aviation. But what got me into it is that I always loved aviation. Since I was like 5 years old, I always wanted to be a fighter pilot in the Navy. My dad was in the Navy. He served for 30 years. And so I always thought, well, Navy sounds cool because I get to fly off the aircraft carriers and I get to travel the world. Yeah. So I was like, heck yeah, fly these awesome freaking fighter pilots, kind of like Mach 2. Let me just do that. That just sounds like not even a job. Sounds like just so much fun. Well, as I progressed further and further into actually starting to do this, like once I graduated high school, I got approved, or I guess it's approved. I don't know. I was ready, like accepted. That's the word. I was accepted to go into the University of Memphis to start the ROTC program. I was going to be an officer, basically going to be in there for 4 years, become an officer when I got out. And I would almost immediately roll over into becoming a fighter pilot in the Navy, as well as I was going to become a mechanical engineer. I was ready to go. It's just going to be 4 more years of my life spent doing the college thing and hopefully having the military pay for my college so I didn't have to pay for it. But 1 month before I started, or before I was scheduled to start, really before that, I had been doing a lot of thinking, but 1 month before I finally made the decision, nope, not doing it. Not going to become a fighter pilot. I wanted to be more. And at this point, I didn't even have, I was talking to a chick, but I wasn't really we weren't really dating. I didn't really have a relationship. I was still fairly single. And I just knew that I wanted to be a family man. It's like whenever I do get a family, whoever I do end up marrying, I feel like I want to come home every day. I want to see my wife and kids. I want to be able to hang out with them, play with them, whatever. Yeah. And so it's like being gone 6 months, 9 months, 12 months out of the year, that's not going to cut it. And then I also did some research about like the divorce rate of folks in the military. And I was like, granted, I could be the other percentage of this and I could not be the one divorced, but it's like 50 or 60% of people in the military get a divorce. I was like, I just don't want that to be my life. So let's do something else. And I thought, all right, well, I'll fly airplanes, I'll fly commercially. That'll be better. I've got 2 uncles that fly commercially. And so I was talking to them about it. And they're like, well, yeah, we're gone like 17, 20 days out of the month, flying here and there. We just sleep in hotels everywhere. And I'm like, that also sounds horrible. So how about I just fix the plane? What does that look like? And so it was just kind of a trickle down effect. And I had actually never done any maintenance whatsoever up to this point. I never did my own oil change. I didn't ever replace anything on my car, didn't work on lawnmowers, didn't do any of that stuff. And then I get into AMP school, airframe and power plant, which is the trade school I had to go to become a licensed aircraft technician. And I was super green, didn't know anything. And 2 years later, I felt like I knew a whole heck of a lot more. Then I actually got into the industry, got my first job, realized I still didn't really know anything. But that's a little over 4.5 years ago at this point. So I've definitely learned a lot since then. Your airplane is safe in my hands, I promise. But that's how I got into it.
That's awesome. And it's funny because you're talking about all these different twists and turns and thinking, and isn't that funny? Just that's how life and business and even real estate just goes, right? You kind of have to find the path that works for you. And it's so funny. I laugh because a lot of the people that listen to the show, right, they are business owners and people who've gone against the grain of what everybody says you're supposed to do. Right. Mm-hmm. This is what you're supposed to do. And I'm like the poster child, right, for what I was supposed to do. You a little bit different, but I actually have a very similar experience where I kind of went through everything. I got a 4-year degree. I ended up getting a master's degree. In accounting, I went to a major accounting firm. I got my CPA. And then all of a sudden, like right after that, I was like, nah, you know what? This really isn't necessarily my life path. Right. And here I am, all of a sudden I pivot. I'm going to real estate development. I go from a company that had 220,000 employees to less than 20 employees. And everybody's looking at me like, what are you doing? This doesn't make any sense. Right. And it's so funny though, because I talked to so many people that experience that same transformation over and over and over again. So that's fantastic. I love hearing that. So what's the plan for you, Josh? Are you planning on, I know you're into real estate. You talk about, you've gone really quickly from 0 to 239 units. Is your plan to stay as an aircraft technician, or is your plan, are you trying to go full-time into real estate? What is your plan?
Let me first preface it with, I know that we had the bullet point in the beginning that it was 0 to 239 units in 6 months. And from a high level, that is factual. It only took 6 months to get that many units. However, it took 3 years to build the foundation before day one started when we got our first unit to then 239 units. So it was not literally just out of the sky blue, I get into the industry and I've got 239 units. That didn't happen.
Well, I have to stop you right there and say thank you for saying that, because people who start listening to these real estate podcasts and people who start doing it, oftentimes everybody's putting their best foot forward, right? You get on there and you just see people, it's like, 5 billion assets under management. And you're like, oh my gosh, how am I ever going to, how is that ever attainable for me in my situation kind of thing? You hear about, I remember even watching like HGTV back in the day, right? And it's like, I flipped this home and I made 120 grand off this one home flip in 8 weeks. I'm like, it's like 3 times what I'm going to make on my salary after I graduate with a master's degree, and you hear about all these stories, but you don't necessarily hear about the struggle that led up to the beginning of the story, right? Everybody starts it where things got successful. Nobody's really talking about those struggles. So, I still want to hear your conversation, but can we kind of preface that with, talk about those 3 years? I mean, what was that like? What was the difficulties? Were there failures or was it analysis paralysis? Talk about those 3 years.
Well, there's definitely failures. But to go back to your previous question before I forget, because I will forget, I do not want to be an aircraft technician forever. I eventually want to get out of it and go full time in this business because I want that passive lifestyle. I want to be able to travel. I want to be able to live the life that I want to live and that I want to be able to live with my family.
Awesome.
But I still love aviation. So what I really, really want to do, what's on my bucket list, so to say, is that I want to get my private pilot's license. I want to eventually have my own airplane. And I also want to have an aerobatic airplane. And I'd love for one of my hobbies to be just flying aerobatically in the sky, doing barrel rolls and going to air shows. And just that would be so much freaking fun. Granted, it's really expensive, which is why real estate's going to have to fund it. But it would be so much fun. So
That's awesome.
that is the intent of like keeping aviation in my life. But I do eventually want to go full time into multifamily and kind of remove my W-2 from the picture. Now, as far as the 3 years goes, the 3 years was chaos. To just put it in one simple word, it was chaos. Like I said, we started out with wholesaling. We did that for about 6 months. Didn't close a single deal. We probably spent like $5,000 on marketing over the course of that 6 months to try to find leads. And we found a ton of leads, and we probably got like 7 or 8 deals under contract on the sell side, but I just couldn't ever get any buyer to want to buy it. And I was like, maybe I'm not marketing to my buyers. Maybe these deals are really crummy. I don't know. I felt like they were good deals. One deal had like a $200,000 spread on it.
Yeah.
And it wasn't just me pie in the sky, not knowing what I was talking about. Literally, you could have made $200,000, but nobody wanted to buy it. Yeah. And I guess it was too heavy of a lift for the investors. I just don't know. I was dumbfounded. So I was like, all right, I can keep wasting my time. I say wasting my time. I can keep spending my time trying to get deeper and deeper into wholesaling, or I can do something else, because wholesaling, at the end of the day, the only reason I got into wholesaling was because I wanted to grow the capital stack and get a baseline level of experience in like transactional real estate, actually closing deals and what the whole process looks like from start to finish. And I gained neither. I lost $5,000 and never got to close the deal. So I was like, all right, let's pivot again. And we really wanted the benefits of owning real estate at the end of the day. So I was like, well, let's buy something. And we thought, well, we're renting now, so we can't really afford rent and a mortgage to buy something. So then I remember stumbling upon house hacking. I was like, well, this might be really cool. Let's look into this. So I start looking at single family houses because I'm thinking that's all we can really afford and all that's really going to make sense for us financially. And my wife is like, absolutely not doing it, not living like bedrooms away from random strangers. I'm like, all right, back to the drawing board. What the heck am I going to do now? Am I even going to be able to invest? And then I found, small multis and started talking to her about that and how it's kind of like a mini apartment complex. Would basically be having our own unit, and they would have their own unit separated by a wall or whatever.
Yep.
And she said, well, it's not ideal, but if it's really something you want to like get into and you really feel like we can be, better off or, more wealthy by doing something like this, then, I'll support you, kind of thing. Like, all right, cool. So now I got to find the right deal. So I ended up finding a fourplex that was not off market. It was listed, and it had been listed for like a week, which at the time wasn't really that long. So I'm thinking this is going to be, this is back in 2018. Mm-hmm. I'm thinking this is going to be a grand slam. It's the most dilapidated house in the nicest neighborhood, all types of ugly. And that's what everyone told me I needed to get. They were like, you need the ugliest house in the nicest neighborhood because you're going to be able to add the most value and make the most amount of money. Like, man, I could use the most amount of money. I could really use it. So we go after this fourplex, and I'm immediately like, well, I don't even have money for the down payment. The heck are we going to do about that? So I ended up talking to my dad, who got me interested in real estate in the first place. He ended up helping me out with the down payment. So that was how we actually closed it. Boom. We closed fourplex. Now we are official owners of real estate, investors, and I am just exuberant, just super excited to get into this thing. And our contractor starts work. We go about 3-4 months in, and they have now tripled the timeline that they initially gave us and doubled the budget that we gave them on just one unit, because none of the units were livable, mind you. We were living in one of the units that was not livable. And the reason I say it was not livable was because the AC didn't work and it's a 100-year-old house. So it's not like there's any
Ah,
insulation anyway. We're in Southern Alabama. It's the heat of the summer. We bought this in
ah.
August. So AC doesn't work. That's one thing. The shower didn't work because the plumbing was busted. So all we had was a bath. So we took what we call bowers, where you fill the bath up, then you just get a red Solo cup and stand up in the bath and like dump it over your head. It was great. Then it was cockroach infested. So just picture
yeah.
my newlywed wife walking around with cockroaches everywhere. She's a trooper.
I was gonna say your wife is the saint of this whole
I know.
scenario, I think.
So anyway, I won't continue to go on it for too long, but basically that contractor had to get fired. We had to hire a new contractor, and it took 5 months to do that because we did a 203K FHA loan, paperwork nightmare. So during 5 months, I wasn't just going to let nothing happen. So I had to start taking out credit card debt and personal loans to buy the materials myself, because all the rehab finances were inside of the loan. And they said they weren't going to pay us anything until we had the new contractor and we had finished all the paperwork. So I was like, oh, we ended up going about $50,000 over budget all in all. Ended up taking a year and a half to finish what was only supposed to take 6 months. And then after we finished everything, we had it fully leased. We were all excited, got renters in there. And then, of course, all the problems started occurring, even after we had just dumped like just too much money into it in the first place, because it was a 100-year-old house.
Yeah.
So then fast forward 6 months after that, 2 hurricanes hit the property, and there's just no way that I had the money to even fix anything with my massive deductible. Because of course it's hurricane damage, and hurricanes down here are bad. And they usually charge you like 1% to 2% of what the coverage is on the property in order to fix it. The coverage I had on the asset, I think, was like 500,000 or something. And I can promise you right now, I did not have 2% of $500,000. So the roof was not getting replaced, and I just had to get out from underneath it. So we got out from underneath it, lost a bunch of money. We actually sold the deal in January of this year, 2021, and we are still digging ourselves out of the hole that thing put us in. So if that tells you how bad that deal was for us, or if that doesn't tell you, then I don't know what will. But we learned a lot from it. I'll tell you what, there was a lot that we learned about what we didn't want to do, like the house hacking. And I didn't want to deal with the property management myself. And I didn't want to do all the work myself. I wanted to hire all that stuff out. We didn't really want to house hack. I didn't really want to buy small multis because it was going to take too long to get us where we wanted to be. So we found out a lot of what we didn't want, which helped guide us to what we did want. And I think really kind of propelled me into the larger stuff, which is where I'm at now.
I love hearing that story, because, for better or for worse, that's not an uncommon story, right? Especially as you're starting like real estate investing, your story happens quite frequently. Sometimes it looks differently, right? It was a house hack, it was a flip, it was this or that that kind of went south, but here you are, right, still doing it. Talk to me, what was your mindset through that? I mean, because obviously you have this terrible experience, you're losing tens of thousands of dollars, everything's taking longer, right? I mean, what kind of frame of mind were you in, and how did you overcome that to say, I'm going to keep going?
The frame of mind that I was in was, I had to prove myself. I've always been someone that has been very driven, especially if it's something that I wanted to do. Like I'm a drummer as well. And when I started learning how to play drums back when I was 10, I told my parents that I wanted to learn, and they didn't believe me. They didn't want to get me lessons. They didn't want to pay for a drum set, because they thought it was going to be just like a phase where I just tried it for a little bit and then nothing ended up coming of it. So I grabbed a couple of wooden spoons, some pots and pans, and was like watching YouTube videos, trying to learn how to play. Of course I sucked, but after about 4, 5, 6 months of doing that almost every day, they realized, okay, he really wants to learn. So then they ended up getting me lessons, and now I've been playing for over 15 years. So that is just one little side scenario or example of the persistence that I feel like I've always had just in life. And so my wife, I think one thing was I wanted to prove it to myself, but also I really wanted to prove it to my wife, because she was very hesitant to believe in this whole thing in the first place. She's not very involved in the business much at all. She's just very much a supporter. So all of her supporting of me throughout the wholesaling, losing 5K, and then getting into the house hack, which lost us even more money than that. And
Yes.
it's like everything that I was saying was going to make us, more financially better off. And we are going to be able to spend more time together and more vacations, all this stuff. It was all the polar opposite, because everything was going chaotic. And it was like I can't articulate what I'm thinking. I wasn't committing or providing exactly what I said that it would be like. And so I felt like I was letting myself down. I felt like I was letting her down, just seeing this continue to decline for like 2 years. We were just on a bad decline. And so I'm like, I just can't just walk away from this, say that it was all like, I was all in for 2 years and then be like, nope, don't want to do it anymore. It's not going to work, obviously. So I just kept persistent at it to prove to myself and to prove to her that it actually works. And then over the last 9-10 months, I've started to be able to prove that this stuff actually works by finally closing some large deals and actually making some money in real estate investing. So that was part of it. But I feel like also what really kept me going was hearing other people's success stories that had similar backgrounds to mine. Not just any old success story of a 50-year-old saying he got his triple master's PhD XYZ and been in some like synopsis or industry that's directly correlated to real estate. Suddenly he decided to get into it and made billions. That is not the story that would relate to me whatsoever. It was those that came from nothing like me, had seen a lot of failure like me, were very young like me, and were still driven and seeing success. When I heard those stories of folks, I remember hearing one podcast, dude was like 20 years old. I think I was 23 at the time. And he had just closed like 100-unit complex and got like $100,000 acquisition fee or something. And I was like, wow, what $100K wouldn't do for me right now. But I was like, if he can do it, then I know I can do it. So that, I feel like that kept me motivated, as well as continuing to stay networking with those that were also in the industry. Because if I hadn't have been like continuing to talk to folks, if I just like isolated myself, I probably would have given up.
I love it, right? So honestly, we could almost like end the show right there and just be like, all right, everybody go home, take what you just heard from Josh, implement in your life, and you'll be infinitely better than you were before you listen to this episode, right? I mean, that understanding, and oftentimes you find, right, and even like Tony Robbins and a lot of people talk about this, entrepreneurs, people who succeed in life, they often view failure differently, right? I mean, failure for an entrepreneur, failure for, and which most real estate investors are entrepreneurs, right? They don't view failure as, okay, it's time to quit and hang it up, right? No, it's time to pivot. It's time to change. This isn't the end of the road, right? This is just something, like you said, that helps me understand what to do and what not to do now going forward. Right. And those stories are all over the place. And so I really appreciate you sharing this with that and letting us kind of get into the mindset of where you were at, because I've been there too. Right. I mean, I've been at my company for the last 4 years. And for 3 of those years, we were kind of on we were on life support, to be honest. It's like 4 years ago, we had $10 million in development, which sounds like a lot. But when you're a development company, it's like one storage unit, right? All of a sudden, now we struggled through 2-3 years just fighting, scrimping, saving, trying to figure out, establishing partnerships. And now what happens is everybody sees the huge success, right? Now all of a sudden we're at $200 million plus in the development pipeline. Everyone's like, oh, wow, you're an overnight success. And it's like, yeah, but not really, right? Like You're seeing all of this now, but you didn't see 3-4 years ago when it was like, hey, we got to sell assets because we got to pay payroll, right? Or hey, we need to downsize. We need to change offices. We need to do all these things because we're living here and we're spending here, right? And we got to readjust all of this. And so I really appreciate you sharing with that, because I think it's really relatable to the people who are listening. So Josh, one thing before we start getting heavily into the real estate, and an interesting topic that you and I were actually talking about right before we started recording, right? You felt like you were kind of to the place where it's like, hey, I might be needing to hire somebody. I might not be needing, I'm kind of looking at it. really interested. A lot of people that are listening are dealing with this, right? The hiring and thinking about it. Oftentimes, they might be doing their own thing as a plumber, and it's like, hey, is now the right time to hire someone? Where are you at in that process? Are you thinking about expanding your operations and expanding your team?
We're definitely thinking about it. So as I briefly mentioned earlier, our vivid vision that I've got here up on my wall, it's very vivid as per the the wording, and it goes into detail about where we're actually going to be at the end of 2023, what our business is going to look like, feel like, smell like, what the company culture is going to be like, how many people we have working for us, how much money we're going to be making, what the revenue is going to be, whether or not we're working 40 hours a week, 30 hours a week, taking a bunch of vacation, how much PTO do folks get, what kind of an impact are we going to be making, literally everything do we go into in that. And so one thing that we go into is how many employees we're going to have. And we say that we're going to have roughly about 6 by the end of 2023, right at the end of 2023, with the goal of hiring probably another 2 to 3. Currently, we just have 3, and that's just myself and my 2 business partners. And technically, we're not even employees yet because we're still working full time in our other jobs while working this. So we're at the point now where we've grown so quickly, because not an overnight success, again, like we've been talking about, but we had no idea what to expect, kind of a thing. We're hustling and grinding and making the broker phone calls and building the relationships and trying to network and learn and just get a deal closed so we can get up off the ground and start seeing some success behind us, get some momentum going. Well, we got momentum going very quickly. And now we have, like, over just literally the last 9 months, we've closed as many units as we have now. And we've even done a single family luxury flip somewhere in there, which is crazy and something I never thought we'd do, but just flipping a beach house. Meanwhile, we've got all these other multifamily units, and we're in the process. Probably about a week from today, when we're actually recording this, we should be closing on our 88 unit complex. And then we're trying to close on another deal in Q4 of this year, kind of rock the end of the year out, and big powwow. So we grew from nothing to almost over 300 units in like a 10-month time frame, or will be over 300 units once we close on this one. So we hit a point in our business where we were having new issues that we never thought were issues before. When we were first starting, the issue was, okay, we just need to find a deal. It just has to be a good deal that we can close. And then we've got to get the investors, and we were kind of working the investors and the deal kind of at the same time. And we were finally able to find the deal, mesh the investors with the deal, and then close on it. And it was like, okay, great. Now let's repeat it. Let's do it again. Meanwhile, we're trying to repeat that process while we now have something inside of our portfolio that we're having to operate and manage the business plan on and fully execute it, because that property got hit by 2 hurricanes, similar to my asset, because it's all down here in Mobile. And all the roofs got blown off, all the siding got blown off. It was a deal that we weren't sure we were going to be able to close, but it ended up being a blessing in disguise, because we got more money back from the insurance company than we thought. And we ended up being able to put more money in CapEx into the property than we had initially planned. So
awesome.
Glad we ended up closing on that one. But to go back to what I'm saying, I continue getting on rabbit trails. We went from nothing to over 300 units in a 10-month time frame. So our new issue became asset management. It became, okay, we've got all these units in our portfolio now. How do we manage it properly? How do we actually effectively execute on the business plan? And we never thought that we were going to property manage in-house anyway. So we had already started the process of outsourcing all the property management all along the way. But we were starting to find out, as there had been a couple of months going on some of these assets, that the property managers that we didn't like. So we needed to exonerate these individuals and get a new company in that we already had a pre-existing relationship with on some of the single family stuff that I had done and my partners had done. And he had already been in the process of getting into multifamily as well. So we're kind of all growing together. It was really cool, actually. So we partnered with him. He's our property manager now on a lot of our assets. And we're like, okay, now we've got property management. taken care of. But asset management is still a problem. Now we have to actually manage the property manager and make sure that they know what our goals are and our intentions are, and make sure they're actually effectively executing and not just lollygagging around, not doing anything.
Yep.
So we had no systems, no processes, nothing for any of that. It was just like, all right, let's just pick up the phone, make the call, or go visit the property, drop in, do this. And so we've slowly started building some systems around these things, because without it, I promise you, it'd be chaos. And even though we've got some of the systems now, and we've added all this investor relations stuff now, because we've got all these investors, and we added basically a lot of different aspects of the business that we didn't have before, because we didn't have any actual deals that we closed. And so all of these new pieces of the business that we're finding are crucial, we're like, okay, we need to focus our efforts on this. So we're focusing our efforts on what's critical. And now some other parts of the business are like falling behind a little bit, like acquisitions. Like, okay, we're effectively operating what we have now, but we need to keep looking for more, because we want to grow. We want to get to where we want to be. So having to balance that, and I say balance, but you talked about hiring people. I am in the mindset of thinking that we need to start bringing people in to help us out, whether that looks like an intern or a mentee or a legitimate assistant or someone that straight up we just hire on to handle all of our acquisitions. Whatever that looks like, we're not entirely sure yet, but we're in the process now of all sitting down together, reviewing what we're actually needing in order to achieve this vivid vision up here and get to where we want to be. And then once we fully comprehend what that looks like and where we want to go, I think we're just going to execute. I don't think we're going to sit around and wait for someone to come to us. We're either going to start the hiring process or start looking for the interns or whatever the case is. But we, as of now, we have not been actively looking for anybody, but I'm starting to think that it's necessary.
Yeah, that's awesome. And obviously, you know, all entrepreneurs, all real estate investors, as you grow, you kind of get to that point. I want to talk just for a second about that vivid vision, where, you know, you talked about it's super detailed, obviously. Where did you guys come up with that?
The vivid vision came from a book called Vivid Vision by Cameron Herold. And I actually heard about it from Bigger Pockets. Brandon Turner was talking about it. I heard about it a little over a year and a half ago. And he said that he did it, just like read the whole book on a plane and then wrote it on the next plane, and then he was done. And I was like, dang, dude did it in less than 24 hours. I just was not a copywriter. I didn't have the ability to do something like that. So I just, at first, when the episode ended, I just wanted to read the book. I wanted to see what it was all about and see if it was something I actually wanted to incorporate. And I read it and I was all fired up, excited, ready to go. But again, I was not a copywriter, and I kept sitting down and getting writer's block and not knowing what the heck where to even begin to write. So a year and a half ago, I settled for bullet points. I know, bullet points. I was like, this is good enough. You know, maybe it's not as vivid as someone else's, but it's still my vision and the direction I want to head in. Just like, hey, we want this much assets under management. We want to make this much money. I want to be out of my W-2 at this point. I want to start having kids at this point. Like literally everything, just kind of include that all in there. And then a year-ish goes by, and I didn't really move the needle on any of the stuff I had written the bullet points on. So I thought, well, maybe either I just don't care, or this just wasn't effective enough to like motivate me. So I actually ended up hearing another episode on the exact same podcast, Bigger Pockets, where they brought Cameron Herold on again. And it was supposed to be about something else, but of course they ended up talking about the vivid vision for like 40 minutes. And I was like, I have got to sit down and write this thing. So it took me about a month to sit down and like either sit down, or I was like walking on the beach, or I was going for a walk, or taking the dog on a walk, or just like in the shower, you know, just trying to take time at different intervals in the day or throughout that month to really think about what I wanted it to look like, and then actually sit down and write it all out. So it took me about a month to wrote it out, and then sent it over to my partners. I was like, hey guys, this is what I've been working on for the last like month. This is why this, like, this is why I think it's important. Here's the podcast interview because Cameron Harold is going to explain this way better than I'm ever going to explain it. And then just gave them a lot of detail and also high level information about it, and then sent them the actual vivid vision I had wrote. I was just kind of like, what do you guys think? If you've got anything you want to edit or add or take away, if you think I'm being outlandish by any of these goals, or you don't think it even sounds something cool that you even want to accomplish, let's talk about it. So they took a couple of days, read it over, and they were like, dude, this is awesome. Like, I don't want to change. Like, I don't want to change anything. Let's do this. This is exactly where we want to go. And I was like, well, okay, cool. So that was kind of, I just like took the initiative to actually sit down and write the thing. And then after creating it, sent it to them, and we all kind of came to the unanimous agreement that this is exactly the direction we want to head in. And it's kind of helped us zero in on our vision, and then also kind of reverse engineer what we need to do today in order to get there. Whereas before it was like, we just want to grow. We just want to make a lot of money. We want to go full time. That's just what we want to do. But now it's like, okay, no, this is actually what we want it to look like giving money to charity and all the bells and whistles of what we want. So we're starting to have deeper conversations about what it's going to look like, how we're going to get there, and the steps we need to take today to make it happen.
Love it. That is amazing. And it sounds like, do you feel like it's helped you?
I feel like it's definitely helped me. The purpose of the vivid vision of actually like creating it, drafting it, is to actually give it not only internally, but also externally, and send it out to all of your investors or your clients or your lender. For me in real estate, the lender, the broker, the property manager, like everybody needs to see it so they can all get on the same page and understand where you're headed, because it's going to motivate them to want to get on your level and then help you get to exactly where you want to go. Whereas if I had just wrote bullet points and said, hey, I want $100 million assets under management, let's get there. Everyone's got their own different way of what that's going to look like and how we're going to get there. Whereas this tells everyone the exact way that we're all thinking and how exactly we want to get there. So that is the intent of it. Granted, we've only really used it internally. We haven't really like externalized it a whole lot by sending it out to a whole bunch of people, just really some close knit investors or friends and family that we've told about it. So maybe we need to start making it more external, but I think it's definitely helped us internally a lot.
That's awesome. Well, as we kind of start to kind of wrap things up, I want to get into, why you talked about all this evolution of your real estate investing. Why multifamily?
Why multifamily? It's a good question. There's trial and error. Honestly, it was painful, financially draining trial and error, figuring out what I exactly wanted to do. And then with the fourplex that we had, the house hack, it was a small multi. And I liked the concept of having the different revenue streams underneath the one roof with the one loan, even though it really wasn't panning out for us. I liked the concept of it. So I always thought at that point, after we had bought that fourplex and kind of dove deeper into that I was going to do what Brandon Turner calls the stack, where you buy like a 4-unit, 8-unit, 16-unit, 32-unit, so on and so forth till you get to where you want to be. Yep. But I thought that it was always going to be with my money. And I thought that I was the one that was going to have to do the refinance or the sale to get the money to buy the next one, that I would probably have to house hack and just kind of continue to go down that road. And I was going to be the one that had all of the net worth and liquidity that approved me for it. And it was just going to be my wife and I till the end. And then I came across that book we were talking about earlier, the Big Red Book, and it talked about how you can like raise money from other people. And I'd heard like using other people's money, and I kind of did use other people's money when my dad helped me out with closing the fourplex, but it wasn't like it was an investor, you know what I mean? Didn't like get a preferred return or anything crazy like that. So I just thought that was different, but at the end of the day, it really was the same thing. And so after finding out that I could use other people's money, and then not only finding that out, because you hear about, I'm sure you probably hear about that a lot. It's probably one of the number one things you hear about. Like, yeah, you can buy real estate, other people's money. You don't even have to like pay for it. And you're just like, the heck? How do you even do
Sounds
that?
like a giant scam.
Yeah, that sounds ridiculous. So then it was actually figuring out how to do that, what that actually looked like. And that helped me stumble upon syndication, which then I had to learn about all the SEC laws and rules and regulations and learn from folks that had actually raised money before. How do you even raise money? And what does that look like? Diving into all of that. And then once I, of course, all that came later, but actually finding out that it was possible for me to get to where I wanted to be, like a decade sooner than when I thought it was, like how long it was going to take me. I was like, this is it. I don't know that I want to be in aviation for another 10 years. I don't know that I want to be here or that I want to move somewhere else just to move somewhere else later. Like, I'm tired of moving. We probably moved like 10 times over a 4-year time frame just in Southern Alabama, like literally just everywhere in Southern Alabama. I'm so tired of moving. There's a moving box right here because we're getting ready to move again. So I am ready to not be moving anymore and live wherever I want, when I want, how I want, with who I want. And so finding out that multifamily syndication was going to be able to get me there much faster. And not only that, but I also really like the idea of partnering, because another huge mistake I made in this fourplex, which there was many, was that I tried to tackle the whole thing by myself. No experience, never even owned real estate before, never bought a single family house, nothing. And I thought that it was a genius idea for me to take down 4,100 square feet, 4 units, most dilapidated house. I don't know what I was thinking. Honestly, don't know what I was thinking. But I dove into that all by myself, and it was a mistake. Had I had someone else, if nothing else, just their experience and their knowledge to like bounce ideas off of and be like, hey, do you think this deal is even a good idea? Or even if I had closed the deal, but I had a partner, I could lean on them from a financial perspective, or from like the connections that they have with contractors, or the cheaper materials they can get somewhere, or they could help me do the work. So it would be 2 of us doing the work if that ended up being the case, instead of just me. It just is so much better with other people. So then learning that all that was possible inside of multifamily, I'm like, wow, the passive lifestyle that I've been striving for, that I've literally been going in the opposite direction of, this is how I actually get to that point where I can work 10, 15, 20 hours a week if I want, or less, just whatever I actually want to do. It'll truly be a legitimately free lifestyle, true freedom. And that was what I was after. So finding out that multifamily is what was going to take me there, that's all it took for me.
That's awesome. And that's a great journey. Well, we are going to start wrapping things up here. Josh, I got 2 questions that we ask every single guest. And I'm going to go ahead and ask that to you right now. What is the best business advice you were ever given?
The best business advice I was ever given. I'm going to have to say, I don't even remember what he said, honestly. I just remember the fact that I was there having that conversation. It was with that mentor I was telling you about during that lunch that I took him out to, because this was right on the cusp of me deciding that multifamily syndication was the route I wanted to go. So really, this was the turning point of going from continuing to house hack or do the stack to finally acquiring partners and going the route of multifamily. And I met with them, and I thought I knew so much. I thought I was ready for the conversation. I was just like, I had read so much and listened to all these podcasts, and I was a genius, Yep. And that was far from the case. After having a conversation with him and sitting down, looking him, face to face, eating barbecue, we went to a barbecue place. He just basically told me that I knew nothing. Like, bro, you have so much to learn. Like, you need to just go read this book, go read this book, go do this, and then come back to me, and we'll kind of take it from there. So him telling me that I didn't know anything, it was hurtful. I'm not gonna lie. I felt like, dang, like, how are you gonna tell me I don't know anything? But it was true. When it came to multifamily, he's the one that had been in the industry over a decade and had like thousands of units worth of experience. He knew what he was talking about, and I didn't. And I was thankful that he was there to, one, tell me that I didn't know a whole lot of anything, but also to motivate me to go and read books and actually do some of the work. Like, hey, go analyze some deals or go talk to a couple brokers, then come back to me. We'll kind of review what you've learned or what you've done, and we'll kind of go from there, and I'll help guide you along the way. He was never really a mentor that was very pushy, I guess is the word I want to use. Like when you pay for a mentor and it's like $50,000 and something outlandish, they give you all of their deals. They help you, like they basically raise money for you and they let you be a part of it. They're introducing you to brokers. They're introducing you to investors. They're giving you all their courses. They're doing all this stuff. He literally did none of that. All he did, he was there for Q&A. So I had to go out and I had to do all the work myself, meet all the brokers, all the investors, find my own deals. He was doing deals left and right. No problem for him. But I was like, dang, I wish I could like do one of these deals, but he didn't want to bring me in because he didn't feel like I was ready yet. He didn't feel like I had earned my keep, so to say, and getting in on one of these opportunities. And I feel like that helped me because it helped me actually learn it the hard way. And I don't know if maybe that's the right way or not. I didn't have any money to buy a mentor, which maybe that's the way you want to go. But for me, organic was the only way I had.
Yep.
So him continuously being there for me when I had questions and helping like just guide me in the right direction. When I was like, hey, what about this over here? And he's like, heck no, steer all the way clear of that. Come over here. I was like, all right, see, I wouldn't have known that. So I think if that's just a long-winded way of saying that one conversation was probably the best business advice because it was truly the turning point in my journey.
That's awesome. And sometimes, you just need to be told to your face and get some of that constructive criticism, because that can be a light bulb moment. That can be a changing point for your path going forward. And that's exactly what you experienced. So awesome. So last question, what real estate investing advice would you give to say other business owners or business executives?
There's so much real estate investing advice out there, honestly. And I don't know if this is a cliche or not, but I would say just get started. I don't know what that looks like for you, and don't listen to other people when they tell you have to do one specific thing. And if you don't, you're going to fail or whatever. It's different for every person. Like I tried wholesaling and failed miserably, but I know a lot of people that make 7 figures a year running a wholesaling business. It's not that wholesaling doesn't work. It just didn't work for me. So figure out what works for you and just get started. Don't get stuck in the analysis paralysis we were talking about earlier. Don't just continuously think what could go wrong. Think what could go right, or what's the worst case scenario if you don't do it. Don't think worst case scenario if you do it, like I'm going to lose a bunch of money. If you don't do it, what's the worst case scenario? You're going to be stuck in your day job forever, like stuck working 60-hour weeks, climbing up the corporate ladder, never have enough money to send your kids to college or to go on that Disney trip you've been dying to go on. Just get started. I promise. Baby steps. You'll get there.
That's awesome. And you know what? I kind of have to laugh to myself because I would say of the last, maybe 4 or 5 podcasts that we've done with other people, at least half of them have said almost the exact same thing, right? You just have to get started. So that was fantastic. Well, Josh, thank you so much for coming. How can people get in touch with you?
Just go to our website at ferraricapital.com. All of our social media links are there. You can check out our portfolios on there, the type of deals that we buy, what we're actually focused on. Our podcast is there. If you want to listen to our podcast, Creative Capital, newsletters there, the whole gamut is there. Just go to the website and learn more about us.
Fantastic. And that will definitely be on the show notes for everybody. Josh, thank you for your wisdom and thank you for your experiences and letting us get into your mind, for the last 40, 50 minutes.
Yeah. Thanks for having me, man. I enjoyed it.
Thank you for listening to the Executive Real Estate Investing Show. Ready to learn more? Go to executivereishow.com for more episodes and resources to help you create generational wealth through real estate investing. That's executivereishow.com.